Today is July 14th, 2006. Actually, July 15th, 2006. And I'm Jessica Clark. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project near Champion Lake, Saskatchewan. To start with, can you state your name?
Oh, I'm Philip Lang.
Okay. And where were you born, Philip?
I was born in this very room.
Really?
In 1934, February the 7th.
Oh my goodness, in this room here. Do you know any stories of your birth?
I think I was too young. I don't think I'd remember.
Do you know if a midwife was present or a doctor?
That's what I'm told, yes.
Okay, okay. Let's see here. Can you tell me some of your earliest memories, your earliest childhood memories?
Well, the only thing I really remember from the youngest that I could remember is in 1939 when the King and Queen came to Unity. That's what really stands out in my mind, is that we went to see the King and Queen from England in Unity. And from there on, I can remember a lot of things, but that's the only thing that I really remember from 1939. I remember when they said the war broke out, the Second World War,
Do you remember how World War II affected life?
Oh, yeah. I always remember my dad sitting and listening to the radio and see what's going on and see if there's any, always listening for casualties or something like that, And I don't know if they ever said any over the radio the way they do nowadays, the way they do on TV now. But we sure got to hear about it, when somebody did get killed in the war. Yeah.
What was it like growing up on the plains?
Well, I remember the dust storms in the 40s. The ground on the windowsill about a half an inch thick from the, dust blowing in from the fields, and it was so dry, yeah. And what else should we say? Catching gophers, selling the tails. We got, I don't know, maybe 2 cents or maybe 5 cents if we were lucky for a gopher tail.
How did you catch gophers?
Well, we trapped them or poured water down and whacked them over the head when they came out. Pour water down their burrows, and we used anything. We'd snare them, with binder twine.
Really?
Yeah, put a snare over the hole and sit there and wait. When he stuck their head out, you yanked the string and you had a gopher by the neck. And then you whacked him over the head and took his tail on him. And that was the end of him. I guess the crows ate the rest.
So what were the tails used for?
Nothing. It was kind of a bounty, eh? It was an incentive to get rid of gophers. Yeah.
How much money would you get for a gopher tail?
Well, I don't know if we ever got a nickel, but we get 2 cents for sure. And we maybe get a crows, or there were, it was kind of a bounty on them too. And if you shot a crow, you were lucky to shoot one, you get maybe 5 cents. But you had to have both feet. You couldn't cheat that way. You had to bring 2 feet in to get that. If you only brought one in, and then tried to make 2 crows out of one, that didn't work.
So you said shooting a crow. What would you use to shoot a crow?
Well, if we were allowed to have a 22, but I don't know, not too many people were even able to afford to buy 22 shells. Or I guess that came along later on, maybe when you could afford to have a 22 to go hunting with it. Yeah.
The money that you got from the crow's feet and the gopher tails, what would you use that for? Would that go back to the family, or
Oh,
was
I
it
don't know,
yours?
probably buy chop breakers or go to a show Sunday night or something like that. And if we had 25 cents, we could go to the show for 10 cents. And sometimes if you were lucky, you could buy a treat and have a nickel left when you came to take along home yet.
So where would you go to see a show on Sunday nights?
It's a basement in the Champion Lake Church, eh? Yeah, they'd run films in there, yeah.
What type of films were they showing when you were a kid?
Oh, sometimes we were lucky to have westerns, and I don't know what, there are all kinds of westerns. Some of the old actors, that you hear of nowadays yet, they've passed on, but that's the kind of guys who really look for it. And always before the show, they would show a bit of the war, eh? Yeah, for call that a treat, I guess.
So how old were you when you could start going to see shows? I mean, were you a young tot, or?
Oh yeah, I only had 3 miles to go. We'd walk in, and I don't know. Don't know if I went when I was 6, but at 10 for sure. If we went to shows every Sunday night, yeah.
We were talking about what was nice about what you liked about growing up on the plains. What did you find especially beautiful about the environment around here, the nature around here?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose when harvest time came along, and my brother and my dad would get binders ready to go bindering, and if there was a nice crop, if it wasn't a nice crop or a good crop, you didn't appreciate it as much, eh? But yeah, when you seen the stooks in the field, and I thought that was the best. And when the thrashing machine pulled in to do the thrashing, and I don't know, I always thought that was my favorite, my best time of the year, or in the spring as well. If the runoff in the spring, the water and all that, and see my dad get the seeder ready and 4 horses to put on and seed the crop, and yeah. And then later on, well, when I got older, I was allowed to harrow then, eh, with horses as well, eh, after the crop was put in.
You mentioned stooks. Am I saying that right?
Pardon
You
me?
like the stooks? Is that right?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Well, when you binder, you make bundles.
Okay.
You tie it, eh, and then you go in and do that. You go on the stook by hand, then, eh? Set the bundles up, and that's what you call stooks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So are they like round bales, and you pile?
No.
Or?
They're stooks, eh? Like they're bundles, and the knife cuts it. The horses pull the binder. The reels bring it in and throw it on the canvas,
Okay.
and then it goes up and goes in, and then it goes into the tying process, and it ties the bundles, and then there's some, if you're doing it with the horses, you're sitting on the back and you're driving the horses, and then you're tripping. They go onto a carrier, and then you tripped it with your foot, and you throw about 5 sheaves at a time, and then you go, and then you hit the next row, and by that time you had another 5 sheaves, and then you hit, and then afterwards, if there was enough help, you'd, we call it stooking. You go in, and some done it with a pitchfork, and I never did stook with a fork, but I sure seen lots of guys do it, and they'd set these bundles up and make stooks out of them, and they would go into the drying process then for thrashing. As we'll see later on, the old thrashing machine out there, that these stooks were hauled to, and they all had to be pitched onto the hay racks and hauled to the thrashing machine. Yeah.
Okay. I I never knew that. Thank you.
I'll be showing you probably some pictures of some of that stuff later on.
We will love to see that.
Yeah.
That'd be great. What did you find unpleasant about the area?
Well, the dust, when I was growing up, well, the dust storms had to be the most unpleasant, or, having to do chores, especially if it wasn't my turn.
What type of chores did you have to do?
Oh, shucks. Milk cows, clean barn with the wheelbarrow, with a wheelbarrow, eh? Yeah, and then sometime you get halfway to the manure pile, and that's where you'd upset, and you'd have to load it all up again, and continue. And yeah, and at harvest time after school, that was my job. Clean the barn for, I don't know, 10, 15 horses maybe that were used at thrashing time. And boy, if I didn't have that barn cleaned by the time my dad had a look at it, you want to know why. You bet, yeah. But I started out with, my first job was at thrashing time was take out the lunch. And I had this old black horse, and I would, in a buggy, and I'd bring the lunch out to the thrashing machine. Lots of bologna sandwiches and coffee.
So did you help your mom a lot around
No,
threshing time?
no, I had sisters that did that, but they helped. They helped to what we call stooking, eh? We were just talking about. We'd stook, and the girls. We for 2 years we had our own thrashing crew. All the girls came home. Everybody came home that were gone, had jobs, and pitched in. And then later on, that didn't happen anymore. So we hired help, eh? But before that, before this all was, we had neighbors thrashing for you. There'd be some guys that would go and move from farm to farm, eh, and do the thrashing. Just like custom work nowadays with other machinery, with combines, and so on.
So tell me a little bit about winter months. What were winter months like when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah, no, you didn't do any more than really go to school and do chores, and from the very start, But as time went on, I'd horseback into town and skate. And I went to a country school. I never did go to the town school. And nothing really. I had a dog, and I can show you a picture later on of him. I used to drive him on the sleigh over to the neighbors. One dog, one sleigh, one guy.
How much snow did you get back then?
Pardon me?
How much snow did you get back then?
Well, it varied. The winters. Some winters we had lots of snow. Like what really stands out in my mind is 1948. We had an average of 4 feet of snow. All the fence, you couldn't see no fences in a lot of places. The fences were completely covered, and everything was with horses then, yet. Yeah, there was maybe the odd vehicle, but there was no open roads then at all. We'd go to town, take a half a load of wheat into town to the elevator. That's all you could really haul. The roads weren't that good, with the bobsleigh and a team of horses, and then bring home a half a load of coal. Just took the old furnace.
Do you know how much coal used to cost back then? I mean, was it expensive to heat the house, or?
Yeah, well, it was just like that started going up too, as freight rates got got higher and all that. You'd be paying more for a ton of coal. Yeah. I don't know. It was probably maybe $7 a ton, and then from there on, I remember it going into the 20-some dollars and maybe even $30 a ton. Eh? Yeah. That'd be for 2,000 pounds, something like that. Didn't take too much for 2,000 pounds, coal. It depends how fresh it was. Sometimes we got that dry stuff. It burned like hay. You didn't get too much heat. You were forever putting coal in the furnace. Yeah.
Did you ever experience a blizzard or an ice storm when you were a kid?
Oh, we had lots of blizzards. We had blizzards that we could hardly get to the barn to look after the cattle. And in those days, clean barn every day. Every day. The cattle were all tied up in the barn, and there was cows to be milked. And
how many cattle did you have when you were growing up?
well, we never did have that many cattle here because we didn't have the facilities here, like, just a barn, whatever we could put in the barn. There was never no cattle out. A team of horses in the wintertime, and the rest was cattle in the barn, eh? Two teams at the most, horses, in those, back in the growing up days, eh? But later on, when after I got married, and then we, accumulated a lot of cattle, eh? Had quite a few cattle, eh?
You had mentioned that you would go skating in the winter months.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have your own, like, homemade skates, or were they store-bought?
No, I was fortunate enough. I had a sister, they lived up in Prince Albert, and she and her husband, my brother-in-law, they bought me my first pair of skates. So I had skates, maybe some guys that didn't have any yet, but I'd horseback into town, and we'd have a barn rented there to put my horse in, and we'd go skating. And well, first of all, open skating rink, we had to work for about an hour first to shovel it off, and then go skating. But in those days, we had a lot more energy too. And then horseback home again, and maybe 20, 30 below.
What type of clothing did you have back then to keep you
Oh,
warm?
I always had good clothing. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing we always had, lots to eat and good clothing. Yeah, no, I as soon as that catalog came out, I had some of the warmest clothes, to do that, because I had to go out and do chores, and you go to school, and then you go on maybe an open sleigh too to school, and first years anyway.
What catalog would you order clothes from?
Well, Eaton's and Simpson Sears, Eaton's mostly. Yeah, Army Navy, lots of stuff came from the Army Navy. Yeah, they were about the cheapest, and probably had the cheapest material too, I don't know. Yeah, I used to always get those high felt boots up to here. They were warm, and then rubbers that would go over, to fit over them, Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about summer months. What were the summer months like?
Warm. Especially when we had to go out and pick stones. It's extra warm then.
Did you have to pick stones quite often?
Well, every time somebody went over the field, every time you made a pass over the field, my dad would make a pass over the field, or my brother, I had a brother that was 16 years older than me, and he was here always in the summertime, and we'd, there'd be stones to pick, and you pick them with well, sometimes it depends. If you were in a cedar crop, you pick them with a wagon. And the horses, they were used to that. They'd walk right along. You didn't have to drive them there. They'd walk right along. You'd throw the stones on and into the wagon, load them by hand, and unload them by hand. Not like right now. Pick them up with the rock picker and then dump them with the rock picker. And and if it was during the summer, we maybe just use what we call the stone boat, what we used to haul the manure out with, and you drag that through the field, and be harder on the horses, but sure they weren't decided to throw them up like in the wagon box. Yeah. So I don't know. You had we used to get terrible thunderstorms, and hail. I remember you had the house all new glass in, and the cracked glass all repaired, and the windows all puttied, and my brother, he was painting, and the house was painted kind of a buff color on the yellow and white trim and a red roof, and it looked real classy and real proud of that, and bang, one evening the hail come along and smashed all the windows. And had to do all that puttying all over. You didn't have windows like you have now, take them to town and get them fixed, eh? Your double glass and triple glass windows and all that. How easy you take your windows to the store and get them fixed if something like that happens. Yeah.
With the severe storms, did you ever see a tornado?
No, we've seen a lot of bad winds, but no, the only tornadoes you ever heard of was in Oklahoma or way down in the States someplace. That was never heard of here. No.
What was your favorite time of year? What was your favorite season?
Oh, yeah. Oh, when July came along, we were allowed to go July the 1st. We went to the sports days with Loose Land Rodeo, which Joe Coleman probably told you about. He mentioned that. He always mentions that, eh?
Oh, no, I don't think we talked about the Loose Land Rodeo with
No.
Joe.
Mm-hmm. As you always said, pick
Joe
stones.
Meyer.
Pick stones in the morning and go to the rodeo in the afternoon. And it wasn't any different here. Yeah.
So what did they have at the Loose Land Rodeo? Was it like a rodeo today?
Oh,
or?
yeah. Sure, yeah. Maybe, they had wild cow milking at that time already, but it's mostly the bucking horses, eh? I don't know, don't remember too much about the bull riding. Wild cow milking, eh? And
What's that?
Oh, they would, guys did let a bunch of cows run that had calves sucking on them, and the guy would take a pop bottle and run up behind the cow, and if you got to see if he can get a squirt of milk in that bottle, and the first guy that got a squirt of milk in the bottle, he was the winner.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they have that anymore now, but they have, what do they call that, with trying to tame a wild horse, and get on. Three guys, or was it four, trying to hold this pony, and one guy tried to get on and ride him. And the guy the ones that could ride the horse, but not too many of them were able to ride to make sure he'd be wild enough.
So how far is it for you to travel from here to Loose Land?
Oh, I don't know. Is it, I don't know, 24 miles over there or something like that?
So how would you get over there when you were a kid?
Well, we had a vehicle. We go over ourselves. My brother always went, so I got there that way. If not, the neighbors would go, and we'd all ride in the back of the old 2-ton truck. And most of the time, on the way home, we got wet. It wouldn't rain all the time, but boy, home from the Loose Land, and if you had a blanket, you were okay. If not, you come home wringing wet. It'd have to be a thunderstorm after that rodeo. I could never ever remember that there wasn't. Yeah, and then we'd go to some of the years we went to Wilkie to the races. We had a racetrack over there, and they'd have horseback races and sulky races, and you got to know some of the guys, and that made it more interesting, eh? I knew quite a few of them that were in that.
So how much would it cost for you to go to the rodeo or go to a race?
I really don't remember what it was. I don't think it was any more than 25 cents to go in, eh? Yeah. It was a little more than the show on Sunday night, probably. It was a little more expense involved too, to bring cowboys in and that, eh? Sure.
So would your mom and dad give you the money to do this, or would it be something that you had to have the money to go and do this?
Well, if I found enough beer bottles, I had a little bit extra, but no, it had to come from Mom and Dad.
Found enough beer bottles. Would you get money for turning in beer bottles back then?
It'd be, I don't know, maybe you got a cent a piece for finding bottles. Well, in those days, we lived on the main road here, you could always find beer bottles. Guys, especially after a weekend, guys come from the bar and, they have a ways to drive, and they'd empty your case of beer, eh? Depends how many guys there was, in a vehicle. Yeah.
Let's turn to your family for a while and talk about your family. Did your on your dad's side, did your grandparents come from Russia
Oh
to
yeah.
Canada, or did they go through the States?
No, no, they were in the States first. I really don't know where they landed when they came over on my dad's side. Yeah,
What was your grandfather's name on your dad's side?
John.
John.
Yeah.
And then your grandmother's?
Magdalena.
Magdalena.
Yeah.
John and Magdalena Lang.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a brother John and a sister Magdalena.
Really?
Yeah. They've all passed on already. Yeah.
Did you know your grandfather or grandmother at all?
I didn't know my grandmother. She died in 29 and I was born in 34, so that wasn't possible, but I remember my grandfather's funeral, and I remember visiting. They just lived kitty corner from here. That's where their homestead was.
So you do remember your grandfather a little bit?
Yeah.
What type of a person was he?
Well, I don't know. Don't think he was much taller than me. I guess he was shorter than any of his boys, for what I seen. Yeah, I don't that part I don't remember that well. But anyway, I remember when he passed away, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Well, in those days, you went and picked, whoever passed on up at the funeral home, after they were embalmed and that, and you'd bring them home to the house, and you'd have to wait maybe for 2 days, and then the funeral, yeah. So it was a little different, and then you loaded the casket onto a wagon, and I took them. I remember when there wasn't a truck around to take anybody to the cemetery, so you took them with a wagon to the church and the church service, and from there back onto the wagon again, and then to the cemetery. And all the graves were dug by hand. Yep. In 1965, we had 13 deaths here, and I helped to dig 7 graves by hand out of those 13, Yeah. So they were all closer by people, and they were a little more out of the district, and then, those people would do the digging, Yeah.
Your grandfather's funeral, when was that? When did he die?
It was about 1942. Yeah, in 42. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 42.
And where is he buried?
At Tramping Lake Cemetery.
Okay. How many children did your grandfather and grandmother have?
Well, all together, that would have been my dad's brothers and sisters, I think there was 3 boys and 2 girls. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a smaller family.
Mm-hmm. John, my dad, was the oldest, and then there was Uncle John. No, Uncle John was the oldest, I said, yeah, mixed up here. And then my dad was the second oldest, and then there was Uncle Paul. He was the youngest, and then there was 2 girls, and I don't know which was. And the 2 girls married 2 brothers. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What are the girls' names?
Christina, and oh boy, I think, no, it wasn't Lena. Was it Lena?
Katie?
She probably, yeah. How come I didn't remember? Yeah, of course. Of course, yeah. Well, sure. We went over all that last winter when we sent this to you, eh? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then there's a Felix Lang who died?
Yeah, how come I didn't think of that? Yeah, and one deceased. He was the youngest.
Okay.
He died when he was about 16.
How did he die?
I believe he died of pneumonia. In those days, they didn't have penicillin like right now, yeah.
You mentioned that your grandparents went to the States and then came up to Canada. Do you know where they went in the States or anything about their
No,
Okay.
I don't know just where. All I know about my mother's side that, and maybe it wouldn't be for, her being born in Texas, I probably wouldn't know where they ended up either. Yeah.
So on your mother's side, what was your grandfather's name?
Dennis?
Dennis, and what is their last name?
Frolic. They
Frolic.
went by Frolic. They have an O in their name. They pronounced it Frolic.
Okay.
Back there, here you hear Frolic, eh? There's some here that have a O in it too, but they still pronounce it Frolic, eh? But down there they say Frolic, eh? Yeah.
And your grandmother's name?
I think she was Katie also. Yeah.
And you said
Yeah, sure. She was. My mother was named after her because.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about the story of your mother's birth and how she ended up being born in Texas?
No, I couldn't have been there either, eh? No. I don't know anything else, just that my grandmother, when my mother was born, she died in childbirth.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's buried in Texas. My sister and brother-in-law were down there one year, and they seen her grave. It's being looked after. My mother never did get down because I promised someday, but it never did happen. I said I would take her down to see her mother's grave, but it never did happen. Yeah.
When before Katie passed away, your grandmother, she had your mother. Did she have any other kids before as well?
No.
Just your...
No, there was like I said before we got started here, she had a sister that was born in Russia, but she wasn't well, and when it was time for her to come over, when she did get better, and then she passed away over there, eh? Yeah. Okay. So my mother never did get to know her, eh? Her only sister, but she had, my mother had, I don't know how many half-sisters after her dad got married again. I don't know, there must have been 4, 5 maybe, and one brother, one half-brother, eh? Like, yeah.
Did you get to know your grandfather at all on that side of the family?
No.
Okay, he
No,
died before.
I think he had died too before I was born.
Okay.
Yeah, a short time before, eh? Pardon me?
Is he buried out in Tramping Lake as well?
Oh, no, they came from Holfast.
Oh, okay.
And my grandfather and my step-grandmother are buried. I have a picture here of their heads, of their grave site and the headstones and their names on and all that, eh? Yeah, it's really a plain, eh, on the picture.
Did you get to know your step-grandmother at all?
Oh yes, yeah. She used to come out here to visit. Like I said before we started here, that she would. She was going blind, but she still wanted to see the garden, so I would take her across the yard to the garden, and like I said before, she always. How she was gonna want to see the garden. What would she see if she was blind, eh? But she wasn't totally blind. But I would take her by the hand and take her over. And but there was always, and I knew there was candy in that apron pocket, eh? So that's how come she didn't have a problem with me getting to take her to the garden. Yeah.
Your mother, what type of a person was she?
Pardon me?
What type of a person was your mother?
Like everyone else, a hard-working person. Had to be. She raised 10 kids.
Really?
I'm the youngest of 10. And we were talking there before about my grandfather. He asked me what his name was. His name is Dennis, and I was supposed to be called Dennis. My name is supposed to be Dennis, named after my grandfather, my mother's side. But my dad's best friend was Philip Meyer, and I had to be called Philip, and here I am. Yeah.
Huh. Your mom, what is her name?
Katie.
She was named after her mother?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your father, what is his name?
Steve.
Steve? And what type of a person was your father?
Oh, I don't know. He's taller than me. Yeah. Yeah, he liked to drink wine. Drank lots of that with his friend. That's why I was called Philip, I guess. Him and his friend his friend Philip drank lots of wine together, and then I guess I had to be called Philip.
Was it homemade wine?
Oh, sometimes I guess if they had time to make it, maybe they never had time to make it. Only had time to drink it, so you get it from the liquor store.
Do you know how your father and mother met?
I wouldn't know that either. I guess I was too young for that one too, eh? Yeah.
When you think back to your childhood, did your father and mother have a good marriage?
Well, I suppose they sure had their ups and downs. Like a lot of others, maybe more ups and downs than a lot of other ones did. But and there's 10 mouths to feed besides your own, and that I don't know.
Who was the strict one in the family?
Oh, you could convince Dad a little easier. My mother, she ruled, even sometimes with an iron fist.
If one of the children stepped out of line, how would they discipline them?
Well, if talking didn't help, maybe the twitch.
What type of things would be considered stepping out of line when you were growing up? What would you get in trouble for?
Talking back? Really? Yeah, that didn't go over very good. You watched that very closely.
You said that they had 10 children.
Mm-hmm.
Can you take me from the oldest to the youngest?
Well, the oldest was Christina. She was born in 1914, and she was 20 years older than me. And then, and she married Bert Myers. I was about a year and a half old when she got married. And then I have the next one was Lena. She got killed in a car accident in 1977. And she was born on Christmas Day and got killed on Christmas Day. They got stuck coming back from Edmonton, going to Red Deer, and there was a snowstorm, and they got stuck. She and her second husband, actually. And she stepped away from the car and wanted to go across the divided highway to tell somebody to call a tow truck or whatever. And when she stepped away from the vehicle, a car come through the storm and drove over. And so, she was born on Christmas Day and died on Christmas Day. Yeah. So we had a funeral in the Christmas season then. And from there on, it took off. And every 2 years, for 6 years, we had a funeral every time, every Christmas season, eh? Yeah. Every 2 years, we had a funeral then, eh? Yeah. I don't know, I can't say too much. They lived at Red Deer at the time, eh? They used to live in Wilkie. Her first husband was conductor on the trains running through here. And then I had her brother Joe. He only lived to be 63, and he died in 1981. And I had a brother John. I will show you my book in memory of him. He was in the military. He was paratrooper, and he was in the Air Force, and he was a paratrooper, and all this. He never did get overseas, but he died in '86. He was 66 years old. I'm getting older than all these guys. Yeah, well, not my oldest sister. She got into her early 80s. Yeah, and
How
then
did Joe and John die?
for me,
How did Joe and John die?
my brother John.
Mm-hmm.
He lived. He was never married. Well, neither was Joe, the oldest one. John lived in Victoria, and he had retired there, and he died of cancer. There,
How did Joe die?
by me.
How did Joe die?
Oh, he had with his heart problems and too much booze lots of times too, I guess, and all that contributed to his death. You know. See, yeah, and Sean was. It was cremation in Victoria for him, and my brother brought the cremains here, and they're interned in the Tramp Lake Cemetery. Yeah. And yeah, I can't say too much. He was after the war. He became an engineer, and he was a designer. He helped to design on the first jet planes that were built after the war. He helped to design the wing on the jets. John, that is. Yeah. And he worked for Massey first, Massey Company, designing machinery, and for Cockshot, and Singer sewing machine. He designed some stuff that went on the Singer sewing machine and things like that. And he wanted me to keep going. Mm-hmm. And then there was Felix. Well, Felix, how we describe it, he spent most of his life in the mental institution in Weyburn. Yeah, and then later on, they brought him to North Battleford, and there was a doctor came over from Germany. He figured he'd be able to help him along. If they couldn't help him when he was young, how were they going to when he was getting older, eh? But anyway, and then after that operation, he died. He did operate on him, eh?
Did they know what was wrong with him?
Well, I mean, what is wrong when you're in the mental institution, eh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he was home at times, but I remember me going with my mother on the train to visit him, eh? Yeah. At Weyburn, yeah. But he was only a short time at North Battleford, yeah. Mm-hmm. And after Felix, there's Veronica, and she's in a home in Calgary now. She's, I think, 82 years old. She's one of the very few that are surviving. There's only 3 of us left. Yeah. Yeah, she worked over the years. She worked out in the cafes and worked for Burns in Prince Albert, making wieners, of course. She never eat any, though. And so she ended up in Calgary, and she married this widower, and he was had a jewelry store, eh? And yeah, and then he passed on, and so she couldn't stay alone anymore. She's in the home there now. And then I have a sister, Katie, another Katie. Yeah, and she farmed at Airdrie. She got married whatever year, and married Dale Chitwood, and they farmed out there, and so she died of cancer. She had colon cancer at about in her early 60s, maybe 64 or so, 66 maybe, something like that, and a few years back here. And I have all that downstairs, of all the obituaries and stuff. That's one of my hobbies. And while she was dying, he got into the combine and got killed in a combining accident. Eh? That's a fairly long story, so we won't get into it, how that happened. Eh? Yeah. And yeah, they had kind of were just hobby farming, and he raised a little bit of grain, getting that, and farmed maybe 2/4 of land, and he got killed. Eh? So he died before she did. Eh? So in a way, and it was telling you about my sister, Lena. She got killed in 1977. In 1979, my mother died at Christmas time. She got buried, and funeral was Christmas Eve in the day. And like I said, my sister got killed on Christmas Day. And then 2 years after my mother, my brother died on the 19th of December, another Christmas funeral. And then sometime later on, another brother-in-law died on the 19th of December. And actually we had three deaths. I forget now. My brother-in-law, my sister, and my brother, all in the three deaths on the 19th of December, all different years though, eh? And then my sister Katie, we were just saying, eh? And then my brother Steve, he was a salesman. Eh? He is a salesman for Calgary Brewery and a cutlery company, eh? And some outfit for selling dishes, and he lived in Ottawa for quite a while, eh? And was a traveler down there. Then he came back, and he or salesman, I should say, traveler. Okay, he traveled a lot, yes. But so he last of all, he was selling for safety equipment. He was a salesman for safety equipment in Calgary. When they opened a new building, he'd go there and just do the sales, eh, of the fire extinguishers, and Ten Spouse Company in Calgary. Eh? And he also boxed in the welterweight division in the 50s, eh? And he won the Golden Gloves twice. And yeah, well, it wasn't what you really call a professional thing, eh? But yeah. And he's still living in Calgary. He's got some Parkinson's going there for him now, so he's getting fairly shaky. Eh? He's 78 years old. And then my youngest sister, Susie, she died at about 57. She had liver cancer. Yeah. And her husband was the one that died on the 19th of December. She died in June, and her husband died in December. Yeah. And they were farmers out in that Airdrie country, eh? Just north of Calgary. Yeah. And the kids, yeah, they were well looked after. They were pretty good farmers in there, eh? And done pretty good at farming, a lot better than I'm doing. Yeah. And that's it for family. And I'm the youngest.
And then there's you.
And then there's me, yeah. Yeah.
When you were growing up, what was it like having 9 older brothers and sisters?
Well, I guess by the time I really realized, that I was, I'm the youngest of 10. The older ones were gone already. Eh? Yeah. Yeah.
How many children were living in the house when you were growing up?
Well, my oldest sister got married here. I don't even know if she still lived here when she got married. Eh? I think she did. Yeah. But I don't remember the wedding. I wasn't walking yet. That's what they tell me anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So the house that we're in was actually the house that you were raised in.
Yes.
How has it changed over the years? What did it look like when you were a kid?
Well, everything, the rooms, and then the furniture it's all the same. A lot of it is the same. Going upstairs, the doorway is the same. We've done a little bit of renovations. What used to be my parents' bedroom is our bathroom now. You know, they didn't have big bedroom suites in those days. You know that you need a half a house like this for just a bedroom, eh? You know. All they had was a closet, a portable closet that sat in one corner, and the bed, and that's all you needed, eh? You know. But you didn't have night tables and stuff like that. So anyway, I don't know. Nothing really. We've done renovations to the house. You know, this is all plaster, and we've put paneling on the walls. That, eh?
Do you know what year the house was built in?
Yeah, maybe 1927, maybe this one.
Okay. Did your dad build this house?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yeah, there was another house here just north of north of the yard here, on the north side of the yard, I should say, that I didn't get to see it because I was born in this house. That house was long gone. That lumber turned into a chicken coop. I remember cleaning that chicken coop, and there was painted boards on it inside. That nobody painted chicken coops, especially not inside in those days. No, my dad built this house. He shoveled all the sand by hand, for the cement, and this house is all plaster. Upstairs, all plaster, ceilings, walls, and that all had to be shoveled by hand and shoveled through a screen to get ready for a plaster, and he did all that. My mother knew all about those things, and he dug the basement with a team of horses every night after he came in from the field. He would take a few scrapers out with the horses, and after the horses were rested, he'd take his best team and dig the basement. And all that, the forms for the basement, they aren't like nowadays, you know, they're set in styrofoam or something like that for pouring cement. It was all had to be nailed, all boards. And then the boards from the forms, they went into the floor. There's 2 layers of floor in here, eh? And you would see that there's cement, you know, trace cement on those bottom boards, and they would use those boards then. Yeah, but he loaded all that sand by hand and unloaded it by hand onto a wagon box and backed into a hole just down the road here in the neighbor's pasture and shoveled all that sand by hand. That's a whole lot of sand, and I used to use the wheelbarrow that they used for cementing. That's the wood I would clean the barn with. And it had a steel wheel, not a rubber tire wheel. Yeah, just a narrow wheel. And when it was soft, it was muddy out, and you cleaned the barn, that wheel sunk down. And the rest is another story.
So when he built this house, he built 2 stories. How many rooms are in this house?
Well, there's 4 upstairs. Only one room has a closet built into it. Why they did that, I don't know. But there's four big rooms upstairs and a hallway. There's 14 steps going up, 14 steps going down to the basement. Yeah, I used to carry many a bag of flour, 100 pounds of flour up them stairs. One room was called the flour room. Nobody slept in the flour room. Yeah.
So how many people would sleep in a room upstairs?
Well, if you were short of space, I don't know. I guess it could be you'd find maybe three people, maybe four. Like like at thrashing time here, there'd be a whole thrashing crew, and they'd all sleep upstairs. And if there wasn't enough room, there was the barn loft. Some guys slept in the barn loft. Yeah, there wasn't enough room upstairs. A lot of guys slept on the floor. Yeah.
So when you were growing up, how many people slept in a bed? Was it one person per bed, or would they pile in?
Well, later on, I guess there could be one to two a bed, but well, two, I guess, eh? Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us when you started to play the harmonica.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was 8 or 10 years old. Yeah.
And do you play any other musical instruments?
Well, you could call that playing. He said, I play the chaw harp. I shouldn't look at you.
And what are you going to play for us right now?
Well, I'm going to play this with a tape, and it's called the Spanish waltz, I guess.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Loud, louder, louder. Bring the volume.
What type of harmonica are you playing right now?
Off. Oh, I don't know what the heck this one is called. I gotta look here. I got so many of these, I don't know what this is. This is a Bushman.
And what key is this in?
And that's in D. The tune is in D that I was playing in the harmonica. Yeah, it's a Bushman. It's probably a German make. Soul's Voice, it's called. It's a very easy playing harmonica. One of the easiest ones I have. I'd like to play now down in the valley on my favorite little Bushman harmonica. Yep. we'll try and play The Bear Went Over the Mountain first in the key of C on the harmonica they call the echophone. Only got a breath here a little bit. I haven't played this for about 10 years at least. Okay, now same thing again. You are my sunshine. I'm going to try and play a German tune on here, a real old German tune. And in German it's called So habe ich mein Schimmel verkauft. And what would you call that in English? Maybe So I Sold My White Horse. And these guys insist that I play it in the key of G with a harmonica I haven't played yet today. And that harmonica is an echo made in Germany, Bell Metal Reeds it's called, and it's a double reed. And I better make sure I got G now. Okay, we'll try that.